Hello lovely people inside my phone. This is Hannah. I'm from Mother Goose's Makery and today I am celebrating day 4 of Tonic's birthday week. Today's die set is a little bit different. We're not making something three-dimensional. We technically are making something three-dimensional. I'll explain. This is a 2D die set. We're not doing a normal Tonic construction build. This is more for cards and decoration. So, Festive Fireplace die set is crammed full. It's only a little A5 set. I can open this up because there are no instructions today. We're winging it. So, in here we have some large stockings. We've got the outer line to cut out the outside. And then decorative bits. So you can make like a cool plaid and snowflake bursts and stuff. We have our fireplace. Obviously very important in a kit named Festive Fireplace. The plinth it stands on, the mantelpiece that goes on the top, the grate. This is where we're going to test my knowledge of bits of fire. That's a flame. I know that bit of fire. To be fair, I don't know much more fiery type pieces. We have a garland to go along our fireplace. These are the top, the heel and the toe for your big stockings. And then we have a smaller stocking. And then that will be your heel, toe and top for the little stocking. I've got a little teddy bear. Some beautiful garlands for your room that you are decorating. We have a wreath. We have some holly leaves and berries that can be put on top of your wreath or garland to just give them a bit more zhuzh. These bits here make a funky shaped tree, and what's cool about this is it's hard to show you with the dies, but they fit perfectly onto each other, so it slots together. And then you see these bits here are the bottom outline for if you want to do a contrast for the bottom. So you will see that that die shape is exactly the same as that. So you can have like a decorative trim at the bottom of each tree layer. That is the tail of a bow, and those, you would have 2 of those and loop them over to make a bow. Candy cane. The inner part of a fire, there are some little snowflakes and stars and baubles for our tree. That's a spindle if you want to make a banister, and a candle. We have 3 crosses here. And we have 3 squares here. So each of these will be a present. And each of these will be the little ribbon that crosses said present. Like that. See? I'm sure that one could find an alternative use for the cross, but that's what it's actually for. So then we have the middle-sized cross for the middle-sized present, and the tiny one, the little diddy one in there. And then we've got some more little garlandage. And I think that's pretty much everything covered. So that is our die set. Now, the die set also comes with some foil fusion. And you get 4 sheets, 2 of 2 designs. So you're going to have this sheet, which is going to do both your large and your small stockings. So these are for your big stockings. These are for your little stockings. We have bits to go inside the fireplace. So you see, that's just frames that lovelily. These are for your presents. That is a mirror to go above the fireplace. which unfortunately we don't have a die for, so I think I might have to fussy cut that. Now that, I couldn't work out what that was. And then I realised I was an idiot, and that is for you to foil separately in silver to be the glass of said mirror. And then on sheet 2, we've got some more stockingage, some more presents, and then decorations for our trees. So we have this one, which is baubles and stars. And this one, which is tinsely, twinkly lightness. So that's our 4 fusion, which is there to help decorate our fabulous stamp set. So I was thinking, what can I do in order to best showcase this set? And I came up with some ideas, and then my mind wandered off in the way that my mind does. And I decided that clearly the thing I needed to do was to make a 3-dimensional card where Santa is coming down the chimney, and it has a kinetic mechanism, so you can make Santa come down the chimney by pulling the tab. Obviously, why would that not be your first thought of what to do with a fireplace? So I'm going to grab my stuff, and this is going to be an unusual demo for me because normally my tutorials are how to make 3D sets. I don't often do card tutorials, and if I do, they tend to be reels or short form vids. I don't tend to do a proper, hey, I'm going to explain to you how to actually do something kind of thing. So we're going to have fun with this today. We're going to see what happens. It could be an unmitigated disaster. I'm going to go rogue. You know that. You signed up for that when you came here. We're going to get on. Before I begin, if you're a usual person, hey, again. If you're new, think about subscribing. I have a lot of fun here. It's a little bit chaotic. There is a lot of talk of going rogue, but I get it done and I have fun with it, so it's fine. So yeah, stay. There are always going to be more Tonic makes that are on this channel because I just adore what they do. And I don't work for Tonic. I'm just an enthusiastic fan. So this is very much done from a place of love, not a place of obligation due to work. So, we're going to make a card. Okay, to make this card, you're going to need 2 pieces of 8-inch by 10-inch card. So a little bit smaller than A4. And we are going to score at 8 inches and 9.5 inches. And that's going to be on both sheets. Then, using a paper trimmer, we're going to cut a 6 by 6 inch aperture in what's going to be the front of our card. So I go 1 inch in from each edge and then score on my trimmer from 1 to 7, rotate, trim from 1 to 7, rotate, trim from 1 to 7, rotate, trim from 1 to 7, and you should have a perfect square cut out of the front of the 8 by 8 inch side of your cardstock. And then you're just going to want to fold and burnish all of your score lines so you have nice, crisp edges. Burnish. Basically what's going to happen when we stick it together, we're going to end up with a box like that, and then our scene is going to be within here. Now, what I've decided I wanted is I'm going to do a brick wall to go in the back of my card. However, my brick embossing folder is not 8 by 8. Funnily enough, very few embossing folders are. So, this is my cunning plan. not sure my plan is that coming. Okay, so my plan, which may or may not be coming, is I'm going to emboss 3 pieces of card. 2 pieces that are 4 inches wide, and they are going to cover the back of my card, because obviously 2 4-inch pieces is 8 inches. However, there's going to be a join in the middle. So, because I'm doing a fireplace scene, my 3rd piece of embossed card is going to act as the chimney breast in the middle. It will cover the halfway join and will look intentional, because quite often fireplaces protrude into a living room. So, I've got my 3 pieces of card. Give them a quick mist with water, because we're going into a 3D embossing folder. And then we're going to use our raspberry coloured plate in our tangerine with our 3D embossing folder and the white plate, and run that through the tangerine for all 3 pieces. And then I just trim off the very top and the bottom of the card where the embossing hasn't taken, because it was outside of the parameters of the folder. So you should end up with 3 nicely trimmed, embossed, bricky kind of panels. To make our mechanism, what we are going to need is a piece of card, a thing we want to move, which in this case is going to be the bottom half of a Santa. That's the only thing I've used today that A, isn't in this die set, and B, isn't Tonic, because I don't have any Tonic Santa Clauses. Or if I do, I don't know where they are. So I shopped my own stash for that one, just because I just needed some Santa legs. Then the other things we will need are dramatic pause whilst I find the thing I'm looking for. This is one of the bits of plastic that your die set comes in. I'm going to use it for the power of kinetics. Seems as good a use as any. And then we are going to need red liner tape. So we literally need a base piece of card, a pulley piece of card, the thing we want to be moved, and some plastic. You don't want the plastic to be too thick because it's got to move freely. I've done a card similar to this before with sandwich bags. That also worked. And I should say I got this idea off of Sam Calcott. Not the whole Santa moving thing, but the idea of a card that you pull one and it makes the other side move. So I did her quad slider card, which is fantastic if you need a card demo to do. But I've taken that base technique and decided to transfer it to this. I'm just trying to see approximately how far up we want this to be. So we have this, and I think I will cut it off about here. So for this card, it's going to be 6 inches. Well, that's easy enough. And we're just going to cut it off. I mean, this piece of card is literally just a piece of card I found around. So what I'm going to do, grab a pencil. I'm just using my mat. This isn't going to be seen, so it doesn't matter that I'm drawing on it. We're just going to do 1/2 inch up we're going to cut that bit out. And then, so we're 1/4 inch in and 1/2 inch up, 1/4 inch in, 1/2 inch up, and we're going to cut that bit off as well. Which will make the gap between those 1, 2, 3, almost 4 inches. So I'm going to need a bit of plastic 8 inches long at least. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We should be just about alright. So what I'm going to do, use my scissors and just literally trim this bit out. You could use your paper trimmer if you wanted to be super duper professional. But as I said, none of this is going to be able to be seen. And I mean, I'm cutting off all the bit I just scribbled on a crayon, so it doesn't actually make any difference. No one will know. I won't tell a soul if you don't tell on me. So, because you see this gap here is 1 1/4 inches, so that gives us a tiny bit of breathing room. Just fold it in half to make my life easier. Just that's cock bigger than 1 inch. That bit. So we have a strip of plastic. Now it's going to be very hard to see what I'm doing because obviously it's plastic. So hopefully by putting it on that card you'll be able to see. So we pop it on here and you can see it fits into our elongated H. And you fold it over. And you want it to be a loose fit so it can move, but not so loose that it would fall off. And then we're just going to take a little bit of red liner tape. What I'm going to do. One bit on here, on this side, and then I'll put one bit on the end on this side, so it's on both ends. And I'll just trim off that little extra bit here. Remove our liner tape. And then we're just going to fold this over. So, think about when you go to a concert or something and you put one of those bands around your wrist. You want it tight enough it's not going to fall off, but not so tight it's going to cut off circulation to your wrist. So just a loose fit where it can wiggle about a bit. And I've made sure that the red liner tape didn't go all the way to the very edge because you don't want it sticking to your card by mistake. And can you just see how this just moves up and down with ease, which is what we want. So you're not going to want your seam to have to travel over because it's a bit harder to get the tape to go around the corner. So we put the tape, I find, at the bottom. What will happen is we will stick this to the bottom inch and it will pull up. Then what you should do, and this is excellent advice, is you should actually put your red liner tape in such a place that it is actually at the correct width. with a piece of card, you're sticking to it. Otherwise, it's just really dumb. There you go, that's better. A piece of paper actually, isn't it now? I put on the outside edges before. I think it's because last time when I did a prototype, I had a really thick bit of card that I was pulling. So we're just going to stick this piece here to that. Have that go all the way up. And then what I find useful to lock it in place, just get a bit of card, any kind of card will do. I'm going to use some of our offcuts from earlier. And I'm going to put a dot of glue here and here. And lay that across. Because you don't want that getting knocked and swinging off to the side. So we're going to fold that around, and then I'll put a dot of glue on this side. Like that. And then just trim that off. And fold that over. And we'll just glue that down. And then you'll see that this can't go anywhere. So it just stays within its lane and just moves nicely up and down. Now what's going to happen, this is going to effectively be behind this. So as we do this, nothing happens. What we're going to do is we want Santa legs to be hanging out so if I put a bit of red liner tape across his tummy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that to there. And then you will see that I'm an idiot. Okay. I'm going to pull this all up as far as it will go. I've just cut those a little shorter so that he can hang a little bit further down. I'm just going to what I'm going to get a bit cheeky and do is just going to crease this here. And because that's not going to come out, if you hear any snoring in the background, I'd say it's one of my dogs. But really, it's my husband. But we will allow it because the lovely man got out of bed at 4:30 this morning to drive to work to pick me up. He's allowed to feel tired and have a little nap. Bless him, he's a good one. Right. So put some red liner tape there. I'll also put a dot of glue, just because, you know, longevity and stuff. So it's glued at the top. And it's never going to go too far out because that's the maximum it can go. You can see that's just a fabulous mechanism, and the doubling up has given it strength. That's perfect. I'm going to cut a bit of tissue tape off my ginormous roll. Love this stuff. What I'm going to do with the tissue tape is I'm just going to use it to close my seam and make it nice and smooth, because I don't want Santa to get stuck on anything. So where I'd normally put on tissue tape and remove it to stick something to it, I'm just going to stick the tissue tape on it and leave it. So I'm just checking where I need to tape up to, and then we're just going to pop that on there and then just smooth it down. So I've got just our inch bit at the bottom for reference, and then we're just going to place this approximately glue it down. So now we have walls. Walls are good. Walls are a good start. Now this is obviously going to be our mantelpiece. And our mantelpiece is going to be on top of this. So this is going to go here, and that's going to go on top. What I'm going to do with this is get a brush. I want to make this look a little bit weathered. So this is 49 and Market Cappuccino. A nice big blending brush. It's a little bit aged at the edges because it's going to be standing out. Just so we know roughly where we are, because this is going to be hidden. Where's my... It's going to be hidden, so I'm just going to... So that's our line roughly where that's going to go. And that's going to be our chimney breast. And you can see that that's just going to... So what we need to do is we need to measure from there to where our line is, just a little bit below. So it's probably going to be... there. And what we're doing, I'm just going to cut across that line here. But then I'm also going to cut across here. And I'm really going to brown, so we're going to brown it up a lot more. This feels like a job for scorched timber. Or oxide. Because this is the bit inside the fire, which is never going to keep that lovely cream appearance. I'm just going to put glue along this bottom line. Yeah. And stick this mantle, which probably could also do with some brown. There's going to be a lot of ink blending happening, apologies. But die cuts almost always look better with a bit of ink blending. So because I liked the effect I did on the back of the fireplace so much, I decided to recut the fireplace piece and then use Distress Oxide inks to colour that up. There was no need. There was literally no need. We're going to stick this down, because this is the very back of our fireplace. I'm just going to stick that down the centre. And I know it's got dimension. But it'll have dimension anyway, because we've inked it after we've embossed it. I just want to make sure it is firmly down. In fact, again, with the tissue tape, you can just do a very thin line. Like this. Just to ensure that it is stuck down and is a smooth transition. It's like with the inside of my memory books, the inside of the pockets I always stick down with tape inside so that stuff doesn't catch them. It just makes your life easier. So I just want to jack up the mechanism a little bit, and if the space is too small or too narrow for a foam pad or foam strip, what I like to do is just cut very fine strips of card and layer them up just to add thickness. So now I'm just taking those chunky strips I've made and I'm just going to glue them either side of the back of our mechanism to just allow it to be floating so Santa has more space to transition. So it's just like if you're putting something up on some foam pads or foam tape, it's just we're using cards as shims instead. Okay, so let's put together this card. So we're going to start off with... Okay, so now it's time to construct the card. So we're going to start off with our mirror to go above the fireplace, because that's for fusion, and then once that's done, it's all just gluing and sticking. So I've cut out a couple of foil fusions that we need. And you want to cut them out from the sheet so you don't end up losing ones you don't want to lose. Just peel that off. Pop it on our card and burnish it, and you can see the colour changing as it goes into the card. That's well adhered. You just see there's nothing left on that. So I'm obviously going for a mirror effect, so I'm going with silver. We just pop this down onto our adhesive. So now I'm just going to do the same with the second layer, which is the outside of the frame. So I'm just going to stick that over top of the actual mirror, burnish that in, peel off the tape, and then I'm going to apply gold foil to that so it looks like a gold framed mirror. Now this is the one thing in the foil fusion that there isn't a die for, so I'm just doing a cheeky little bit of fussy cutting. If I hadn't used an embossed background, I could have just stuck it directly onto the background, but because I did, I needed a smooth surface to do the foil fusion on. It wouldn't have worked on the textured background. Hence the need to fussy cut. So I've stuck the mirror onto our chimney breast with some glue, and we can start putting the whole fireplace together. Weirdly, so with two different pieces of card, did two different effects, and they almost look the same. So doing this one was completely pointless, but it's done now. So put a tiny bit of glue on the very top of this. So we can attach our mantelpiece. And like the plinth at the bottom, I added a tiny bit of brown ink blending to the card to give it a bit more dimension. I'm trying to work out where Santa goes. Basically goes just below the very top of the page. What I'm going to do, I put a foam pad on the top where it was wider, and then underneath I've got those rails I made, so we're going to pop some glue. That going to go about there, either side. Test it out. Perfect. That's what we want. A nice smooth mechanism. So next we're going to stick on our chimney breast, not mantelpiece. So we're just going to pop foam pads either side of our Santa runner, I'm doing a double layer with some glue in between, and then I'm going to let that dry before I stick the chimney breast on. So the back of our fireplace is also going to get the double foam pad treatment. Yes, I should just buy thicker foam pads. I had thicker foam pads at home. I had left the house and was crafting out of the house. Anyway. And obviously don't put foam pads in the middle of the fireplace, because that's where Santa's going to need to be able to move down. So we're just removing the tape off the top of the foam pads and sticking the chimney breast onto the card. Don't forget to add glue for a little bit of wiggle room. Again, just glue. And what I did was I did a small layer of green, and then I cut out individual holly leaves in dark metallic green, light metallic green, and then I cut all the berries out, and then I just used a little bit of foil on them to make them sparkly. And finally, after offering it up to the card about 800 times, we are going to stick the fireplace down onto the card. Hooray! Not going to lie, I'm as giddy as a kipper that still works. So excited. I didn't want to burn Santa's feet, so I didn't make a fire, but I thought I would put a little grate in. Should have maybe cut out a few to give dimension, possibly. But me. Okay. Now we have lots of little bits to stick together. Pop out glues. Have some candy canes. Dot some glue on the back. There's one. So next we have a couple of stockings to hang off our fireplace, and we're just going to need to glue on the toe, the heel and the cuff at the top of the stocking, and we're just going to do that on both. So presents are next, and they are really simple. They are just squares with a cross stuck to the front, and there's also a little loopy bowy one that you can stick on the top if you so wish. So I'm just sticking the contrasting bows on top of the boxes I think the colours go best with. And then I have cut some little just strips of card. There's just some ivory card I had. And I'm going to stack the presents on the strip of card. And the strip of card is going to extend about an inch below the stack of presents so that I can stick it to the rail that's going to run along the bottom of our card, which will allow us to make the presents look like they're further forward in our scene. So now we're going to do the bow for the mantelpiece. Because the die cuts both the top side and the tails for the ribbon, I have cut two, so I have two lots of tails, so I just layered them. I'm just going to curve the loops that make up the top half of the bow. So to glue the bow, first we put a dot of glue on the end of one of the loops, and then I'm going to stick the end of the other loop to it, and then I'm going to kind of sandwich them together. So I'm going to put a dot of glue in the middle, pop the second end of the first loop on top of that, and then a dot of glue, and pop the second end of the second loop on top of that. So I'm interlayering them to add strength. It's not just I've done one side, I've done the other side, sticking them together. They are interlaced, so hopefully the glue will hold it together, and I'm just weighing it down with my scissors in order to just keep it in place whilst it dries. And then I've stuck together the 2 bits of tail and then stuck the bow to the top, and we're just going to let that dry, and then we can stick it on our card. I had my garland, and then I cut another one out of metallic, another one out of a darker green, and just layered them all up so it looked bigger. I stuck in some of the tiny hoops. This die here. And made the little poinsettia out of some foiled card. What I'm going to do now is just add some little dots to the middle of the poinsettia. Also, I realised that I had lost the dye that makes the berries for the holly. So that's really annoying. It's just candy canes I made earlier, and these little bears which I've just done a tiny bit of inking around. I'm just going to pop a bear in. A candy cane out at a jaunty angle. And then let's go on the back. And just pop that on the end of our fireplace. And the same with the other one. Just to mix it up, I might put the candy cane in the front. Just so they don't look too samey. Then to attach the wreath, what I did, I did another double layer of foam pads, and I just put it just above the mantelpiece. Put a little bit of glue along underneath where the foam pads were, so it just slots down, glue tight, and then you have a really gorgeous fireplace, which is the whole point of the dice. But wait, there's more. So the tree I cut out earlier, I glued it together. Well, I glued it in a pile on another piece of card and then cut that piece of card out, so it's one piece. Did a rainbow of little baubles. Just glued them all the way down, so the garlands were foil fusion, so I rubbed the adhesive on and then did gold, silver, gold, silver, gold. All the way up, just to add a bit of bling in the background to make it look interesting. Then this is the mantelpiece I cut out too, so it's nice and rigid. And glued that behind. And I also did a little bit of ink blending around the outside just to give some dimension, because I find that ink blended stuff looks better. Okay, so firstly, I have cut a strip that is 1 inch deep and it's 8.5 inches long, and I've scored 1/4 inch in at either end, so it's a long thing with a flap on either end. That's the first thing. Now, I'm going to glue it to the side of our card, and I've just made a little mark 1 inch from the back, so 1/2 inch from the front, and that's where I've attached the flap. So I'm just going to burnish that in so it stays put. And this is going to be the bar that I'm attaching our floating details to, so our tree and our presents. So we want to put the tree as far over to the right-hand side as we can without it interfering with the other side we're going to stick on. So I'm just gauging where I want that to be, popping a little bit of glue on that extra long trunk we put on, and then I'm going to flip it over and put a double line of red liner tape on the back, because I don't want this tree to go anywhere or shout timber. You know, safety first, people. Safety first. So, I made a 3rd stack of presents because I'm greedy and I wanted all of the presents for my Christmas scene. They are on another stick, but I've trimmed the bottom off because what I'm going to do is, to add extra dimension, I'm going to stick that stack of presents to the back wall and then have the other presents layered on top and further forward, so it looks like there's depth and lots of presents. I also ended up flipping the stack upside down because I realised I had 2 pink presents on the bottom and that upset me contrast-wise. So I flipped the pink to the top and my life felt infinitely better. This is 3:30 in the morning crafting for you. Decisions are made. So originally, the 2nd stack of presents was going to be on the floating bar, but I decided to put them further back, so I'm just going to bend up the stem from the bottom, and then in lieu of foam pads, I'm just going to layer up a couple of layers of card just to give a little bit of a oomph and place them slightly further forward without going the whole foam pad route, mostly because my foam pads were at the other end of the building I was in and I wasn't about to waste 5 minutes going to get them. Not going to lie to you people, honesty is the best policy. But, I mean, mine was just a slightly more long-winded way of doing it. Same effect, it still looks fabulous. You're not going to look at the card and judge me for not having used a foam pad. So, I'm just going to place those presents to the side slightly of the first stack, and obviously they're dimensioned up a bit, so it just looks like the pile is in front of them. And then a stack of presents number 3, I'm going to glue the bottom of the stick, which was the original plan, and I'm just going to pop that behind our floating bar. And then when you place the frame over the top, you can see they're just kind of peeking out of the frame. It's super cute. So just before I attach the frame to the other half, what I just want to do is I cut out the swags out of some hollow gold rainbow mirror, and I just wanted to attach them underneath the frame so it looked like we had decorated our ceiling. So I'm just going to glue 2 strands of the swags together, and then I'm going to glue and red liner tape, because it's metallic cardstock that I'm trying to stick to the frame, to the back of the frame, so it just creates another dimension, another layer of depth to my scene. Side note, I completely forgot out that I cut out Santa's sack, part of the same set as the Santas, so you can pretty much ignore this bit, but yeah. So I wanted to stick it in, so I'm just adding it into the fireplace. So it looks like he's dropped his prezzies, ready to deliver them. Right, so when I stuck the back down, on the right hand side I left a bit of tissue tape with the covering layer attached so that I would have space to slot in my frame. So I'm just removing that protective layer now, so it's going to be all nice and sticky inside. That sounded incredibly rude. So we're just going to grab our frame and first things first, cut the corners off, because I believe very strongly in paper crafting that you should not show your flaps to everybody. In fact, I'll be honest, I feel that just generally across the board, do not expose your flaps to people, keep them concealed. So we're just going to add glue now to that flap. And I'm applying glue on both sides so that when we insert it behind the embossed wall, the tissue tape doesn't grab it instantly and then it's stuck and I have no... Basically, I want wiggle room. And then we are just going to insert the flap behind the embossed wall. I mean, you could stick it on top. It's not going to make that much difference. It's not an incredibly huge flap. It's only 1/2 inch wide. But I just, in the interest of neatness, I thought I would try my best to conceal it. So, slotted it in, and then we're just going to make sure that the edge of the side lines up with the edge of the back, and just fold it down, and then just press it down so that the two sides can meld together. I didn't properly burnish because obviously we've got lots of bits there. Now I'm opening it up and burnishing there, but when it was closed I was scared. So now the right hand side is attached, we can attach our floating strip to the other side. Same as the first side, I've just made a little mark 1 inch away from the back, so 1/2 inch from the front, just so I know that I'm lining it up and everything is going to be straight. So glue on the flap of the floating strip and then line it up with the inch mark and then just burnish the hell out of it so it does not shift. And then now all that's left to do is to apply glue to the flap on the left hand side and close the card up. Now, I made a little mistake because when I was folding it, managed to rip the card on that flap. So I am just applying a little bit of red liner tape so it bridges the tear so that we don't sustain any further damage to the card. I'm just belt and bracing it. So you don't need to use red liner, you can just use wet glue to run along there and then seal it up. But in the interest of structural integrity of my card that I damaged, I have applied red liner. So I'm glad I gave myself a bit of wiggle room here because I'm a little bit wonky. So I'm just straightening that up and we are done. Festive Fireplace die set. We've used, I think, pretty much everything that we've used. The fireplace, that. The only thing we haven't used is the candle. Big stocking, because they would have overwhelmed this. The fire itself, because you didn't want to burn Santa. And the banister and the spindle. But everything else we've used. We've used foil fusion here. We've used some more foil on the berries. We've used foil fusion on the tree. We've We've got some ink blending here and on that. We've done some ink swiping on that and that. A little bit of ink blending around the fireplace just to make it pop and be more three-dimensional. I think that's really everything you need. So, that was my slightly different tutorial today. I know I normally do three-dimensional makes. I've just realised what I'm going to put on the frame. You'll see on the final pictures. Okay, so I know I said I was done. However, because my tree is long, I feel like it's drooping backwards when it lays like this, and admittedly it will probably be standing up normally. However, I'm just going to make a little 3D box to just go behind the top half, just so it continues to stand where it should. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut a teeny tiny strip, 3.5 inches by an inch, maybe. I don't know. Whatever is a suitable. I can't remember what I did at 3:30 this morning. It's wide enough that it doesn't stick out the back of the tree, and it's 3.5 inches wide. And then I'm going to score it at 1/2, 1, 2, 2.5, 3.5. And then we're just going to fold it up, glue it, and stick it behind the tree for support. And that's actually a fantastic and super easy way of doing any kind of support for a three-dimensional scene. Because if you place it on the ground behind the item, it will help the item stand up, or you could actually use it as a pop-up function. But that's a story for another day. So as you can see, I'm just applying glue to the opposite short sides, because it needs to be an inch high up, because that's how far forward the strip is. And I'm just placing that behind the tree, and then I'm going to let that dry, and that just means that the tree will stay nice and proud to be in the scene that he is in. And now we are done. Well, I say now we are done. I'm then going to go home and apply Morning Dew Nouveau Drop to the baubles, because I want them to be shiny. And I'm going to attach some stuff to the corners. But then we are done. But instructionally wise, we are done. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you have, please like. And if you're new here, please subscribe. This was my slightly different make for me today. A cheeky little Santa coming down the chimney scene card. And it was a lot of work, but I absolutely love it. I'm so proud of what I've done. It's just a really simple mechanism, and you just pull the tab at the top and his legs just pop down, ready to deliver presents. And you can use this technique for loads of other cards. So it's a really helpful and versatile technique to use. Anyway, I'm off, so bye. Keep crafty.